Welcome to Certified Clarity, where the topics may vary, but it is all about clarity. Life is full of success and failure, with many ups and downs. How do we savor the successes and see the lessons in our failure? Join us as we discuss overcoming adversity, taking full advantage of opportunity, and turning pain into purpose.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in to a new edition of the Certified Clarity Call. My name is Brian Keith. I will be your host. Today's guest is an amazing woman in my eyes. In fact, I was so enthralled by her videos, by the mission and the commission on her life, I just had to ask her to join the show. I've been a fan of hers for quite some time. Miss Tonya Carter, she's an empowerment speaker at MsTonya LLC Speaks. She launched this in August of 2016, but her goal is awesome. Her goal is this: to help divorced women and single mothers discover their breakthrough. But without me telling you everything about her, I think it's best if you hear it directly from her. So, Miss Carter, thank you for being on the line. Thank you for being here to do this podcast. But in your own words, tell us who you are.
Okay. Well, good morning, and thank you for having me. As you said, my goal is to help divorced women and single mothers discover their breakthroughs. And so basically, I am divorced, and I've been divorced for about 7 years, and I'm also a single mother of 2. And I know that when I got my divorce and I became a single mother, I felt very stuck. I placed a lot of limitations on how far I could climb, and I put a lot of glass ceilings up. And it was time for a change. A complete shift. And because I know it's possible for me, I know it's possible for other women as well. But I understand how being that divorced single mother can mentally make you think that this is all you are and this is all who you can become.
I presume it was a process. It didn't happen overnight. Take us to day one. You realize in the back of your mind that this relationship is about to end.
Back in 2008, mentally and emotionally, I checked out. I had already checked out. And that's a lot coming from me because, marriage is a huge thing in my eyes. So, I modeled it growing up. My parents will be married for 46 years in another week. And so I had already made it up in my mind that I was tired. I got to a point where I just couldn't, there was nothing else I could give. I got completely empty, and I just didn't want to try anymore. And so, and that was a hard thing. It wasn't, even though I knew it, it was still challenging. It was still challenging because this is my family, this is my husband, these are my kids. What are people going to think? My kids are going to not have their dad every day. I did not beat the odds. So, but I also knew that if I stayed here, it wasn't going to be a good thing for him, for me, or even our children, because it just wasn't a healthy relationship. It was completely toxic. And so I knew right then that it was time to leave. Now, the shift didn't change as far as my process goes, though. It didn't change right then and there. Again, one of the misconceptions about divorce is that, you should just kind of move on and not deal with the issue and the emotion that goes behind it. And that is so false. The divorce is a painful process to go through. And you have to give yourself that permission to heal from that.
The permission to heal. In your bio, you also talked about the permission to live, the permission to hurt, and the permission to move forward in your life. Tell us more about that.
Well, it seems as if we live in a world where you need someone's permission slip. You need their approval. You need their validation to be hurt or to live life. And it's kind of like to be honest with you, I didn't grow up with this thing of, feel your feelings, and it was kind of like, you're strong, you'll be fine. It's kind of like that's what I got. I got a lot of you're strong, you'll be fine. And that's true. I'll be fine, but even I don't care how strong you are, you still are human, and you still have feelings, and we have to stop ignoring those. We have to stop acting as if we are robotic and we run by Energizer batteries. We don't. We're human beings who have hearts, who have feelings. And if you were in a relationship with someone, if you were married to someone, you love that person. And so this isn't to take lightly. It's not something that people, and I think that's kind of like the misconception because of how it is displayed. Especially in the celebrity world, it's like it's just a thing. And so it has become a thing, not realizing that it leaves a lot of hurt behind it. And many of us do not give ourselves permission. Like, you don't need nobody else's permission. Like, that's the whole thing. You don't need anybody's permission. You don't need even your own children. You do not need their permission for you to deal with it. Because if you don't deal with it, you will not become the best version of yourself. You won't be the best woman. You won't be the best mother. You won't be the best friend. You won't even be able to discover your true purpose in life and really fulfill it to its capacity if you do not give yourself that permission.
So, Ms. Carter, take me to, you've accepted the fact that you're going to be a single mother. You've accepted the fact that there's going to be a stigma. I think when we were talking before, you mentioned that your father was a pastor, and we don't even want to start talking about the stigma that comes from the church as far as not being married, being a single mother. But walk us through day one, separate homes. This is a reality. What do you have to do? What is the mindset you have to have?
Okay. Well, the mindset of realizing that I was a single mother was just at that particular time where I just have to do what I have to do. It wasn't in the beginning, I did numb my emotions. I did suppress my emotions. I did not deal with them. I just knew that I had to support my family by any means. And, I'm an IT professional, and, so I was working. But during that particular time, my job was transitioning into laying people off, and I was one of those people. So when, my ex-husband left, 2 weeks later, I got laid off. And so that was just another roller coaster of emotions. And I didn't know how to deal with all that. And I felt like I didn't receive the support, even though we were still legally married and he was still my husband and we didn't get along, I felt like I still needed that support from him. But I realized that, okay, you got to just let that go. And so when I lost my job, I had never experienced a layoff before. I didn't know how to receive that information. But it was that thing of, okay, my kids need me. My kids need their mom. And dealing with emotions, I felt like dealing with your emotions could wait, because getting a job and paying the bills was the most important thing to do. And it was to some degree, but because I did not deal with it, I made a lot of bad choices in other relationships with men because of me not dealing with what I was supposed to deal with. And that was me healing. And so I accepted the fact that I was a single mother simply because my marriage was just that toxic where most of the time I felt like I was one anyway. So the transition of being one wasn't just that difficult. I think the hurtful part is feeling that way when you are with somebody. When you're a single mother, you know you're a single mother. It's kind of like you kind of wire yourself to know that this is what I'm doing. It is just me pretty much handling the household. But when you are in a relationship and you should never feel like you're a single parent.
Speaking of parenting, now that you are officially divorced, I think you mentioned that he has remarried and has a bigger family now. Mm-hmm. How does that affect, or how did you move into the co-parenting role?
Well, honestly, the transition wasn't a good transition. I'm not going to sit here and like, I did everything by the book right. I didn't, which is why I'm teaching people to not do what I did. I was hurt when that happened. I wasn't in a good space because everything happened so fast. It was like, bam, separation. 6 months later, bam, I have a child. And another year later, bam, I'm married. And it was like, what? And so the transition wasn't that good. But one thing I never did, I never stopped my child's father from seeing his kids. I never did that. That's just not my thing. That's not how I operate. But as far as him and I and our communication, it just was very slim to none. It was like, okay, you're getting the kids Saturday. We don't have to have a whole drawn-up conversation about it. It was very cut and dry because, he had nothing to say to me. I had nothing to say to him. And that was pretty much the dynamic of our relationship. I don't think that's the best way to do it, but I know that the reason why it was that way is because I didn't give myself permission to heal from the situation. I was tying my emotions still into it. So he got our kids every Saturday. That was pretty much our agreement at that particular time before he moved out of state, and that was pretty much it. It wasn't, okay, let's talk about the kids. I mean, if there was anything about the kids I needed to know, I would text him or I would make it really brief. But that was the whole dynamics of our relationship.
How did you develop the concept of breaking up to break through?
It's more than just breaking up with the person that you're with. Like, that's like the beginning. That's kind of like the first step. But then there are other things that need to be resolved. So, like, I didn't break up with my anger. I didn't break up with me being, I was unforgiving, and I didn't break up with that. I didn't break up with repeating of the same pattern that caused me to be more depressed because I did not give myself permission to just not only deal with it, but be honest with my true self. Like, be honest about, okay, why are you going in circles? Why do you keep having the same situation happen over and over again? See, those are things that we have to completely break up with. I had to break up with my mindset that this is all I can become. This is it for me. I'm a single divorced mother. I'm in the IT field. Even though I don't like this not my passion, but there's nothing more I could be because I have kids. That was kind of like my default. I got kids, so I don't have time, purpose or passion. Who has time for that? Your job is to, provide. That was what it was. So all these different false truths that I came up with because of my mindset, I had to divorce those too. It wasn't about just divorcing the person. It's a lot more deeper than that. It's about divorcing your old ways so you can discover the breakthroughs in your life. When you're walking around with a grudge, you can't become your best self. No matter how much you try to hide it, you cannot become your best self. If you don't break up with that anger, you cannot become your best self. You cannot discover certain breakthroughs in your life. You cannot get there bringing that with you. And so that's what came up with the whole concept of breakup to breakthrough. It's about really discovering who you are and becoming the best version of yourself. Unapologetically.
That's the term. And I love that laugh. That's the term. I want to drill down on what you said. You said that there's a cycle, right? And I love how you've taken the word divorce and taken it from being in a pejorative, this negative term, and you've made it a positive term. Not only do you need to get a divorce, but you need to embrace divorce. You need to divorce what doesn't work. You need to divorce holding a grudge. You need to divorce this cycle. Could you speak to this idea that you mentioned how single mother, raising two boys, IT field, and there was this cycle, but that wasn't who you are. How did you, if you could take us back to anyone on the line, anyone listening to the recording, how did you break out of that cycle? Because it seems like so many people are stuck in that cycle where they believe that all I am are the roles I play, because mother, IT professional, single mother, divorcee, those are titles, but that's not who you are. How did you break out of your titles to become who you are?
What allowed me to break out of the cycle was making a decision. When I say a decision, I mean, it was that this is how I see it. When you get married, you make a vow, okay? For better or for worse, sickness and in health, you make a vow to love this person and honor this person, right? You need to be that way about yourself. And I'm serious. Like, I had to, and I didn't care what no one thought. Back in 2015, my father experienced a heart attack. And that did something to me. It really, truly did something to me. Number one, because the night before my father had this heart attack, he was here. He was at my house. My father watches my children for me on Monday nights because I'm a part-time teacher too. And so him and my mom, they come over here on Mondays. And when I get home, we talk for a little while, and they go home. That's kind of like the routine. And then the next day, I'm at my son's baseball game, and I get a phone call that my father was in the hospital because he had a heart attack. And I didn't know how to receive that. And I really broke down because I'm like, what? You know, it's that thing of, you know, unexpected life circumstances just happened. And so when I went to the hospital, you know, I went to see how my dad was doing. When I came home, I just had a moment. I had a meeting with myself. And that meeting was, you know, death is a part of life. No matter how much we want to try to act as if it isn't, it really is. And the other thing is, I just wasn't truly happy with my life. You know, I wasn't ungrateful. I just wasn't satisfied. And I think we need to understand the difference of grateful versus satisfied. I was grateful to be able to provide. I was grateful to have a job. I was grateful to have 2 healthy children, but I just wasn't satisfied. And so that's when I made a decision to become a better me, no matter what it takes. It didn't matter. I didn't care what no one thought anymore. I didn't need no one's approval. This was my own approval that I gave to me. It was my permission slip that I gave to myself. Because sometimes you want to act as if everything is cool. You want to pretend like everything's okay. And all you're doing is wearing a mask. And it was time to take that mask off and just say, you know what, I'm not happy. I'm not satisfied being in an IT field. That's not my, you know, I didn't know purpose and passion existed at that particular moment. I just knew as a person I needed to change because I knew that there were some decisions that I was making that I shouldn't be making and things that I was doing that I just didn't want to do anymore. And it takes courage to do that. It takes a lot of boldness to do that because now you're really unpeeling the layers and you're becoming your true self that you were always supposed to be. Now you just have enough courage to do it.
For me, your message resonates way beyond divorced women, way beyond single mothers. This is the answer. What you have, the nuances of information that you're providing are actually the answer to how you overcome any obstacle. You're laying out the blueprint. So you also created ReInventU from Breakup to Breakthrough this year, but that really includes an online community and a call, a weekly mastermind call. So tell me about that and what is the passion and what are some of the breakthroughs you're already starting to see on your mastermind call?
Okay. The breakthroughs that we're seeing right now is just things that we as women deal with day to day that we don't want to really share, maybe because of fear or maybe because of, you know, just our own assumptions of ourselves. And so what we do, we're not on a call every week talking about relationships, okay, or being married. You know, this is a lot, again, like you said, this is a lot more deeper than just that. That's kind of like one thing. And then it's that thing of, okay, how you're going to get to the next level. You know, because that's what the call is about. That's only if you want to get to the next level and be a better version of yourself. And so we talk about things of fear. We talk about consistency. A lot of women struggle with consistency. You know, with things that they have going on with their day-to-day, how can I make room for me? Because, again, being a mom in general, it's like everything's supposed to stop because you're a mother now. And so what you want doesn't matter. You just need to be a mother. And that's so incorrect. You need to also have room for you, if not more, because you can become a better mom if you do so. But mothers are perceived as women who's supposed to just never almost put themselves first. Because if you do anything else, it's almost like you get titled as an unfit mother. Because that's how I was. I was like, I couldn't do it. I didn't think I could do this or do that because I was a mom. And it almost made me resentful because it was like, because I'm a mom, I can't do anything. So you kind of box yourself up into this life and you don't do anything else outside of that box because you feel like that's all you're supposed to be doing. And so we talk about what they think of themselves, like their mindset, because that's where it starts. You know, you can want something, you can want all the change in the world, but if that mind doesn't shift, then you won't go. So it's like wherever the mind leads, you follow. So if you think you're not good enough, it's not that you aren't, but because you believe you're not, then that's going to limit you. So it's about feeding the spirit, feeding the mind better than what you've been feeding it. It's also a community to know other women in different areas. Like, this is kind of like the Walmart. You know, Walmart, you can go and, you know, like a one-stop shop. This is a one-stop shop where you meet other women who have some common interests, but you might be a woman who's an accountant, the other woman might be a marketer. I mean, you just never know what those two women can do working together, because my goal is, my saying, no woman is an island. And so we have to stop thinking that we can do it all and be it all by ourselves. You can't. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to get us to the next level. And you can't do it alone. It's only but so much you can do by yourself. And so that's the goal of ReInventU, is to reinvent yourself to become the best version that you can become.
It takes a village to get us to the next level. With that in mind, let's talk to the village. Is anyone on the line who has a question for Ms. Carter? Please speak up.
Hello, it's Janice.
Hi, Janice.
Hi.
Good morning, Janice.
Good morning. And I came in late on the call, but I wanted to know what are some of the major steps to really get past this process of divorce? Like, what is one of the main key steps that someone can take?
Okay, that's actually a really good question. There are a couple of things. I would say the very first thing is to allow yourself to be vulnerable about it. And the reason being is because, one of the misconceptions about getting a divorce is that it's this big celebration. All right. Now, I'm not saying that it wasn't the best option between you and the person that you were with, but it's not a celebration. It hurts. Divorce is almost like a death. All right. And when we lose someone we love, we have to grieve that. When we lose someone, people say, grieve it, deal with it, But then when someone gets a divorce, girl, let's go out and celebrate. It hurts. And it's okay to admit that about how you feel. I think, and the next thing is to take ownership. Take ownership of the part you played in the relationship. I think that when we use the word take ownership, we take it as in we failed or it's our fault. But you have to understand that if your marriage was the opposite, where it did work and it was a success, you want to feel like you played that part because you were a part of the success in the marriage, because it takes two. And so because the marriage didn't work, you also have to play the part in the fact that it didn't work. Sometimes you have to dig a little deeper and figure out where did I go wrong in this? And that isn't to say that it would have worked, but you have to take ownership in that relationship, because if not, you could possibly carry some of the same old traits into something else and have the same exact problem. Because, if you decided that I would love to get married again, because this divorce rate gets higher and higher the more you get married. And so I would think it would get lower, because I would think after the first marriage, people would have really learned from their relationship. But some people don't really learn. They kind of get out of one, go into another one, and go through the same cycle again, and then still don't see, okay, I need to check the common denominator, and that's myself. And so it could be different things. It could be and I'm gonna give you a prime example. when I had this moment with myself, I realized that I was trying to change somebody. And that's the wrong thing you should do going into a marriage. And yeah, it sounds common sense, but common sense isn't always common. And just because it's common sense doesn't mean it's common practice. And so that was one of the things that I had to be honest with myself about. I was trying to change somebody. I fell in love with what I thought the person could become. Now, I loved them, but we're talking about husband and wife. That's a whole different role. And you have to be ready and willing to play that role. And I was trying to change a person who that wasn't my job. And I knew that before the marriage. But again, thinking that, okay, once we get married, it'll work. It'll be fine, right? He'll get it. He'll see it. No, it got worse. And so that was the thing that was one of the things I took away. It's a couple other different things, because there were some things that I did that I shouldn't have done, regardless. And so sometimes we want to act like that's okay. No, because if not, you can easily go into something else doing the same thing. So giving yourself permission to be vulnerable and saying, you know what, I need to deal with this, and be unapologetic about it. Because people, when people hear you're divorced, they automatically think you're ready to date. They automatically think you should just get over it. Like you have no feelings tied to it. That it's over once you sign the papers. And it's not over once you sign the papers. It's over legally, but mentally and emotionally, chances are it's not. And then number 2, also take ownership of the part you play. Take ownership of the relationship. That's just giving you your power back. That's what it does. It gives you power. It allows you to say, you know what, because as long as you play victim and as long as you blame, it gives you no chance to get your power back. All it does is give you pity. And people will co-sign with that. They were like, yeah, you're right. It's his fault. But then it's like, okay, I got to take part in this too, because it took 2 to get this thing, to allow this divorce to happen. And so those are the 2 things that I would definitely say that in order to move past it, do those 2 things.
So what if, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, so what if, you've done what you could do? You see what I'm saying? And, as far as everything, how does someone feel after they've accessed where they were, after someone has accepted their responsibility in a relationship? Speak about how to deal with, when you said that it's still not over after you sign the papers, and as far as the emotional and the mental. Can you speak a little bit more on that? How does someone go through that maze of those feelings?
Well, the first thing is to be honest with your feelings, okay? I mean, I believe that, and this is why I created the community that I have, for women to be able to express themselves and show up with their true feelings. But I also think that I'm not saying to like sit in a corner and kind of like feel sorry for yourself. Just like for me personally, I had to set boundaries in my life. Like I had to create rules. I had to create a system. I had to start doing things, and I had to start doing them on purpose. So like even though I know that I was vulnerable and I was hurt during that time, I needed to find a way to allow myself to heal. So in other words, dating is not something that I need to be doing because that wasn't a part of my healing. Sometimes we have to shut down certain areas in our lives for us to really take charge.
Okay.
And I mean, and I really do mean that, because you can find yourself easily slipping into something else. And I didn't do that at first, because when I first got my divorce, I thought that's how you were supposed to get over somebody. You know what I mean? Like going out, doing this, doing that. But in reality, that was just a cover up. So I had to stop trying to cover up the things that I thought would make me feel better. And for me, it was about, I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of reading. I read a lot of personal development books. I got back into my spiritual center because, I am a woman who believes in God. So I had to really not just believe in him. I had to also develop that faith that it will be okay. That faith that you are forgiven. You know, it's certain things that you just can't do without God being in your life, you know, because that's my spiritual belief. So I just said, okay, I need to not only read the word, but I need to apply the word. I need to read things that I'm having a problem with. I need to understand, why do I have a hard time forgiving? Forgiving was just not my thing. I felt like you didn't deserve it. I felt like forgiving you was letting you off the hook. Forgiving was a huge thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to understand forgiveness. I had to start reading about forgiveness. And then I had to, again, by reading it, I also had to look at things in perspective. I had to change my way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I had to start saying to myself, okay, I can't read this and then go against what it's saying. Because then at that point, I really don't want to change. Because wanting to change is opening up your mind to believing that it's possible and making the choice to change. Because we can want to change, but making the choice opens up different ways or opens up the permission to change. And so when I read a lot about forgiveness, because that was my, you know, forgiveness and being a single mother, I was angry about it. I was mad. I'm not going to lie. I was upset. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to be a single mom. It sucks sometimes, you know. It's just what it is. But you got to armor up all the time to just kind of deal with it. No. There are times where I'm exhausted, and there are times where I can't do it all. And mentally, I have to tell myself that as a mother. Like, you know what, Tonya, you can't do it all. Go somewhere and sit down. And you do it tomorrow. I have to tell myself that. Because if not, I'll just keep going and going.
Right.
And so when it comes to forgiveness, I had to read about forgiveness. Like, I had to understand that forgiveness is a choice.
Right.
It had nothing to do with me feeling like they deserve it. It had nothing to do with anything but realizing that it was a choice. And when you make the choice to forgive, you open up your heart to forgive regardless of the circumstances. I was waiting on an apology that I thought I would never get, that I thought that I was going to get one day. See, I was putting my own happiness on hold, waiting for something to take place for my breakthrough to come. When in reality, once I took ownership, it gave me the ability to start changing on my own so that I can discover my breakthroughs without waiting for someone else to do what they were supposed to do. See, you have to take the power. You have to take the power. You have to. And so a lot of it was about it being in solitude, a lot of stuff, because, you know, sometimes other people don't understand. And so they may feel like what they're doing is they're trying to help you, right? Which is cool, but that's not helping me. Going out isn't helping me. Having a drink is not helping me. That's suppressing everything for me. Right. And I had to be honest with myself. I didn't explain this to nobody. I just knew that this is what I needed to do for me.
So isolation sometimes is part of the process to be able to assess yourself and to get back to who you are, and then take the steps necessary to take charge of where you are in your life going forward.
Absolutely. And isolation doesn't mean with no one. I just think you have to be around those who you know will not let you off the hook. So, like, sometimes it's easier to be in denial. Mm-hmm. Like, going out is cool. Like, and I'm not saying not to go out. I just knew that I had to stop going out to certain places and doing certain things. It was just that thing because I knew it wasn't really helping me.
Right.
Again, it's that gift of truth that we have to give ourselves, because, you know, it's easier to tell somebody else to be honest with you, but it's easier for us to be in denial with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just kind of running this same rat race. It wasn't changing. And so that's, again, you do have to sometimes get in solitude and really figure this thing out and say, you know what, this isn't really doing anything. Why am I doing this? Like, you got to know the why you're doing stuff. And at that point, it wasn't fun anymore. It was never fulfilling. I was never being fulfilled. I was just suppressing my emotions by going out all the time. So, like, when my kids went with their dad on Saturdays, I went out. That was my thing. Like, because I was trying to run away from dealing with how I felt.
Okay.
But again, once I decided to make the choice, when I made the choice, because understand, if somebody would have told me that then, I've been like, yeah, whatever. I'm not trying to hear what you got to say.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't make that choice. But when you make a bona fide choice, that means you are allowing it to come into your life. You're allowing the change to take place in your life. Making a decision is very, very vital. It was like, I'm tired of flip-flopping. I just got to make this decision, and I got to stick to it.
Good morning. My name is Dietrich. How are you all this morning? My question is, how did you not allow how you personally felt about your husband or ex-husband filter down to your children so that they were maybe tainted or had some type of feelings when they were with their father? How did you keep your feelings kind of segregated so that they wouldn't know, like, that you were angry, that you were hurt, that you were unforgiving, so that they could still love their father as if, he was still in the home? How did you keep those feelings separate?
Thank you, Dietrich. That's a really good question. At the time, I saw a lot of that with other people, how they use their child as that crutch, or allowed what happened between them and the other parent to kind of make the kids the middle. And I just never wanted that. And because I believe that I had it in my mind that was something I never wanted, I never did it. I felt like I will allow my kids to, I wouldn't say allow my kids, because at that time they were young, but I just never wanted to be that mother that did not allow them to see their dad or hate their dad or have a grudge against their dad. It was just a decision that I had made when I knew my marriage was going to be over. It wasn't like, I don't know how to really say it. I know some people, they do have a hard time doing that. And so that never was a problem for me, as far as, you can't see your dad, or your daddy ain't, he's about nothing. It was that thing of, you know what, I'm going to let you decide how you're going to have your relationship with your children. Even though I already knew what I desired, I can't make him be a father, if that makes sense. And I'm not going to sit here and say that we always had this best relationship, because we really didn't. It's so amazing, because him and I spoke a few days ago, and I was like, wow, it's amazing how we're able to talk on the phone. It was a time when we couldn't even speak, and we were in the same room. And so we've grown a lot, but in the very beginning, I never made that an option for my kids to not talk to their dad or not deal with their dad. But I will say, for those who do, respect the other parent's role. Like, this is the thing, because sometimes when we have a problem with the other parent, it's because of the relationship that we had with them. And I'm not going to lie, it does sometimes seem that, okay, because we got a divorce, you're going to divorce your children, because that's how I felt. That's the downfall of having kids. It's almost like you feel like your kids get the short end of the stick because they're no longer with the parent anymore. And what I had to understand, and this is what I tell women, I had to accept him for who he was, meaning that I can't make you be a father. I can't make you do what you know you're supposed to do. And it hurts sometimes. It sucks. My kid's father lives in another state. And, they don't see him as much. They see him in the summer. That's kind of like what it is. And the other 46 weeks out of the year, it sucks sometimes, especially when those days when you have a 15-year-old who thinks they know it all. Okay? And so what I had to learn how to do, I had to ask myself, what can I do, as opposed to what I couldn't do. I can't change him. I can't say, hey, you got to, I can tell him how I feel. I can tell him everything all day long. But at the end of the day, you're an adult and you have to make that choice. So I had to learn that I was trying to change him in our marriage. I'm definitely not going to try to change him being, co-parenting. I'm not going to do that because that's what I was doing in the marriage. So I just said, you know what, Tonya, you got to let that go. And what can you do? And so I started putting my son around other men who I knew would be a good influence on him. I started putting him in church and started having him doing activities. I just focused on more what I could control versus what I couldn't. And I know that's always an easier said than done situation, but it got to a point where my peace was more important. It got to a point where my sanity was more important. Because no matter how much I was saying something about it or making a big deal about it, it wasn't going to change anything. And so when it came to my kids, I embraced that they talk to their dad because that's their relationship with him. And they're at a point now where they're 15 and 10, they're a lot more older, where they can pretty much take their own initiative. They don't need me to do so. Now, when they were younger, I would say it bothered me a lot more because they were little and they had to experience their parents getting divorced at a younger age. And so, yes, I wanted us to be more better co-parents. I wanted, I didn't want to feel like, okay, because we're divorced, our kids are going to be divorced too. And so I just learned that you're doing the same thing, Tonya. You're trying to make somebody do something that they don't want to do. If that makes sense, I can't make somebody do something they don't want to do. And that's not to say that he's a bad father. He's not a bad father. My kids love their dad, and I love the fact that they do. And so I've kept it in my mind that I'm going to let them make that decision, and I'm just here for support. And so what I mean by that is that if you have any feelings towards your dad that you want to discuss, you can talk to me about it. But I also want you to talk to your father. I didn't want to be that mother or that woman to try to protect them by not telling them anything. You know what I'm saying? I know that it sounds good, trying to be the protector, but I also think my kids need to understand some of the real things that goes on. Now, I don't tell them everything that happened in our marriage, but they do know, okay, mom and dad didn't work well together. That was kind of like it, and they needed to know that because they asked questions. And so, like I told my kids, but that should never stop your relationship with your dad. You know what I'm saying? If you want to call your dad, if you have feelings towards your dad that you want to talk about, make sure that you express them, but you better be respectful. But you need to let them know how you feel. I had to learn to understand that, I had to just really fully accept him for who he is, not who I wanted him to be. I had to realize that he may not be there as present as I would like him to be. If he does, great. If he's not, what can I do? I had to learn that bad mouthing their dad in front of him, if I'm doing that, then clearly I'm not over something.
Do you ever get over the pain?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think you just get stronger.
Okay.
And I believe you do get through the pain. You know what I'm saying? I think you get through the pain, and I think that that's something that we all have to understand, that you can get through it. You just have to make that decision to want to get through it. And as for myself, I mean, I'm okay with it. At first for me, I'm a woman. I hate losing. I don't like to lose. I love to win. And when my marriage didn't work, I felt like a loser. I felt very shamed about it. I didn't want to talk about it because, it's not a popular topic. It's not something people want to talk about. They'll rather suppress it and be worrying about when are they getting married again. And it's like, well, that shouldn't be your focus. Your focus needs to be getting yourself right first. Because I'm in a couple of groups on Facebook that, people have been through divorces and separations. And it was a guy, he made a post about, how would he ever get in another relationship? He's ugly, he's worthless. And I read it, and this was literally a few days ago. And I commented, and, I'm like that auntie. Like, you're not going to talk about yourself like that. But you say you want a relationship? How you want a relationship? Nobody wants anyone who doesn't feel like they're worthy, because that's exhausting, because that means that I got to sit up here and keep telling you how worthy you are.
I love how you put things.
No,
I love how you say it.
I mean,
I love how plain you make it.
Because it's what it is. And I told him, I said, you know, you need to stop talking down on yourself like that. And I didn't know this guy. But I said, look, I hope you don't take this the wrong way. I said, but you really need to stop. I said, because, you know, what makes a person ugly is how they act. And I said, right now, even if you had someone in your life, you couldn't fully embrace it, because all you're going to do is come to them and mope around about how unworthy you are. And now they have to be responsible for lifting you up every day. That's tiring. And nobody wants to deal with that. And so, like I told him, practice self-love first. Self-love has become very vague. Self-love has become a statement that people just say and don't act upon. And when I say self-love, you really got to love yourself. You got to be your own cheerleader. You got to speak life into yourself and know how worthy you are as a person, way before you talk about you trying to share your word with somebody.
Speak life into yourself. Say it again. Self-love is what?
Self-love is vital. It's essential. It's mandatory. Ooh. Because self-love will allow you to choose better. Okay? I mean, and not just in a relationship with someone of the opposite sex. It allows you to choose better in your career. It allows you to choose better with your friendship. Like, it's not just a one thing. It's not like a one area thing. See, when you get a divorce, it's a lot more deeper than just trying to find somebody else. It's about finding you. You got to find you. Because in the midst of all this, you can find yourself feeling like you're in the wilderness. And you got to find you. And I didn't know what that meant at first. That's the thing. I didn't know what that meant. But finding you is a lot more deeper than just being with someone else. You got to fill your cup first and then have that run it over, you know, and then let somebody else come in. Because at that point, I can guarantee you that 9 times out of 10, if that's not the person for you, you're not even going to entertain it. See, when you're just searching for something in hopes of it working, you're just grabbing anything off the shelf because you're hungry, okay? So, like, when I'm real starving, like when I'm starving, when I'm full-fledged, I'm talking about hungry. You know what I'm saying? I'll grab anything because, you know, when you're hungry, you just want to eat something. But when you're already at a point where you're pretty much satisfied, you're not going to just grab anything. If you're not, like, really starving for something, you're not just going to go to the store and just grab anything. You know what I mean? So you don't want to be that person that's just so hungry where you just kind of going through a drive-through grabbing something. You want to make sure whatever is coming into your life is going to add to your current happiness.
This is so powerful. Are you hungry? Are you starving to the point of accepting anything? But you said it before. Now, okay, here's the concept. This is your idea, and I just want you to drill down on it because it sounds like that's where we are. Your concept is, and this is what you said in your bio, the name of the game is to become whole. That's what you're talking about right now, right? Becoming whole?
Absolutely.
Please expound. And then you also say no more half-stepping. No more half-stepping. So go into that. How do we stop being hungry? And I'll add another layer to it. How do we stop being thirsty?
I stopped feeling like I was thirsty. I had to stop being in denial. I believe that it's so much easier to lie to yourself and convince yourself that you're not hungry because you don't want to feel like you are. You don't want to feel like, you know what, I am like this. This is me. This is how I am. You know, self-evaluation is a little, it's tough. It's really tough, but it's rewarding too. Because if you can't fix anything that you're not willing to face. So, like, I realized I could tell my ex-husband how he is all day, you know? Like, you need to do this, and you need to do that, and this, that, and the third. But then it's like, okay, well, what about you, Tonya? And see, I used to justify what I did as a reason for why I did what I did. And I had to stop justifying it because it wasn't right no matter what happened. Because at the end of the day, it is about taking ownership. It's not about, okay, well, if this person was doing what they needed to do, then I will be better at what I do. When I should not give somebody that type of power over how I respond. See, that's the thing about taking ownership. It's not just saying, you know what, I take responsibility. Because I hear people say that too. Well, I take responsibility, but what does that mean? What are you going to do about taking that responsibility? What does that entail?
That's a great question because, well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's a great question because I've seen people go the other way with it as well. So what people do is they'll take ownership for everything and not ownership for their role. So maybe if I could I just want to make sure I'm clear on what you're saying. You're saying take ownership for your responsibility or take ownership for all of it?
I mean, I took ownership of all of it. I took ownership for everything. And that allowed me to be a better me. I mean, I know I was a good woman. It had nothing to do with me being a good woman. It had nothing to do with me being a good wife. However, I did some things. I accepted some things that I thought a good wife should accept. Because I thought that means that I was a ride or die chick. I don't know if that made sense, though. Okay, so, like, in other words, there were things that I compromised on that I knew I should have never compromised on from day one. Wow. But I thought that's what you had to do to be a quote-unquote good woman. Now, however, there was a side of me that, you know, I needed to work on, like, you know, I am a alpha female. You know what I mean? And sometimes I don't think about what I'm going to say. I just say it. And that's not always good in a relationship, especially a marriage, because that can belittle a person and that can hurt someone's feelings. And there was a side of me that didn't care about your feelings if my needs weren't met. And so that was the ugly part that I had to face. Because again, when you telling some other people, you know, especially your homegirls, they're gonna be like, yeah, girl, he need to get you. You know, that's just what your homegirls do. So it kind of makes you feel like what you did is okay. But again, it was that thing of me being honest with myself because what I didn't want to do is ever go in another relationship being that way. I didn't want to start a relationship off with conforming to things, thinking that it's okay because, you know what, it's not that bad because he does this. And because he does this gives him a pass and this. No, that's unacceptable. And so it was about me setting rules. It was about me setting boundaries. It was about me being honest about what it is that I truly want and not feeling like what I want was too much or thinking that, you know, I would never get that. And so when you start downplaying your worth and start downplaying what it is you truly want, you start accepting anything. You start becoming like almost desperate in a sense. And you never want to be that way. You want to be whole. And not just from a relationship standpoint, you want to be whole in your finances, your health, your spirit, your heart, your mind. Like it's all about being whole in every area, not just like this one area. Because what I found myself doing, I found myself settling, okay, not just from a co-ed standpoint, from my job. I settled in my finances. I settled in my mind because I settled on how far I could climb. So it became very habitual, and it was like a virus that just spread it. I had to kill that virus. I had to stop realizing that you don't have to settle for absolutely nothing.
Habitual. It became a virus. Okay, it's been an hour. I know your time is valuable. Let me ask this question because you have a phenomenal resource in the call that you offer on Sundays. I'm not sure if I'm overstepping my boundaries. How do people contact you so that they can be a part of that call?
Okay, so if you want to be a part of the call, you can find me on Facebook. Okay, my Facebook, my personal profile is Tonya Carter, but then I have my business page, which is MsTonya Speaks, and then I have a group on Facebook called ReInventU. So it's ReInvent and then the letter U, and it's called From Breakup to Breakthrough. And so you can just join the group. It is a group for women only. I was told I need to talk to men too, but I got to work with the ladies. I got to work with my women here. But you can, join the group and I will add you. And I probably reach out to you personally because I like to talk to them personally, not just to join the group, but just to talk to you personally to see where you are in your life so I can know how to work with you the best way I can. And I'm on Instagram, too, as MsTonya Speaks as well. So you can find me there.
There you have it. Thank you so much for your effort and your time.
You have been listening to the Certified Clarity Podcast with Brian Keith. Remember, before we can strive, we must survive. Once we have mastered the strive, then we can thrive. If you would like to contact the host or any featured guest, please see the podcast show notes. Your feedback is welcome. Thank you for listening.